This is the end, folks, so are you ready? That's right. Satan has no victory tonight. Because you know what? We have less than 24 hours, folks, before this eclipse or apocalypse or eclipse hits us. Welcome to a special end of the world edition of All Things Reconciled. My name is Penhollow. I'm the presiding Archbishop of the Martoma Orthodox Church and the host of this show, All Things Reconciled, on the Proximity Portal. By this time tomorrow, the sky will turn dark. This event will join a long list of recent signs that the apocalypse is here. Earthquakes in New York and Taiwan, the Baltimore Bridge collapse, severe weather patterns, cybersecurity threats, and communist Joe Biden. All clear signs that this is the end, folks, so are you ready? Let's begin with a sign from the heavens on April 8th, 2024, because at 12:39 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, a total solar eclipse graces many in its path, generating more clickbait fake articles on sites like Charisma Magazine than I can care to count. Now, if I could just stop commenting on those pages, please pray for me. In all seriousness, it's stuff like this that inspires me to produce more content for the Proximity Portal that explores how we got here in our current beliefs in mainstream Christianity. I'm mostly talking about those who claim not to be religious, those who have a relationship with Jesus and believe that the Bible is the word of truth, or as the acronym goes, basic instructions before leaving Earth. The great escape hatch of the rapture, the big swoop, and we're gone in the twinkling of an eye. That is, unless you're a mid-tribulationist, yada, yada, yada. Look, I might be poking fun here, but I actually take none of this lightly. The truth is that these beliefs can be directly traced to the things we address on this program all the time. What we believe about the end times and current events are directly related to the story we believe in, and the story we believe in, we live in. The narrative that we subscribe to, it dictates what we do and how we live. And this is no laughing matter, because so much needless suffering has happened, often because of the stories that we tell ourselves. Now, every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the same is true for the grand narrative that we extract from the Bible. But how much of this is true, and how much of it is a long-standing piecing together of things that may not be related to what's happening in the sky, in Palestine or Israel, or in your own backyard? Now, we've been arguing that the very people who claim to be following the Bible for their story are actually inheriting their story from others. We take that story we learned in church and from our parents, and we put ourselves into it. It's very exciting to think that you are part of a special remnant who knows the truth about God and the end times. We become the protagonists, the heroes of the story. We believe in our story so much that we are willing to cast aside any doubts, contradictions, or inconsistencies in our story. Why? Because we seem to think that these doubts, contradictions, or inconsistencies are simply an attack on God and the Bible. And so we double down on those stories no matter what. And we have been arguing here that such behavior is in fact religious dogma, the very thing that Jesus' followers claim not to be. But for those on the outside looking in, it is painfully obvious what they are doing. And so, we have come here not to tear down anyone's faith. Far from it. What we seek to accomplish is to help people see that their stories may not be as true as they once thought. One of these stories is the apocalyptic one, or the belief that we are living in the last days according to the Bible. But the Bible doesn't really say this at all. At least not in the way that most Bible-believing Christians seem to think. So where are we in the Bible story? That's something that requires far more study and contemplation than we can give here in a single lesson. I've given many of my thoughts on biblical interpretation, and I will continue to do so. But right now, what I want us to do is return to the point, how is it that we see ourselves in this grand narrative when we think of ourselves in the Bible, for example. This is not entirely wrong to do, but if we lack the basic tools of biblical interpretation, called hermeneutics, we are often prone to misinterpret the story in the first place. Now, as I mentioned, some people get so upset when their interpretation is questioned that they start loading their Bible AR-15s out of context with verses, and they aim them at me with reckless abandon. They do this when I question their beliefs about hell and eternal conscious torment. They do this when I question their unbiblical ideas about original sin and how it impacts our entire lens of interpretation of the Bible. And they do this when I question their practice of reading between the lines of every event in the news. And they impose this end-time story upon it. Now, they will certainly do this with what I'm about to say as well. So, let them fire away. But if this is you, why don't you put down those Bible bullets for a moment and just consider for a moment that you don't know everything about the story that you tell yourself. Now, that is not to say that I think I know more than everyone else, so please don't go there in the comments. All I'm saying is that all of us are susceptible to seeing things in the Bible or any other aspect of our lives incorrectly. If there's anyone who knows that they are wrong about things on a daily basis, it's me. And at the same time, I'm aware of this fact about myself, and I've spent many years using this knowledge to put my beliefs in check and to always seek greater understanding. And what I could tell you is that living this way will not only help you avoid the kind of errors that I'm describing here, it'll also change the way you see everything in a good way, in a way that expands your perspective and your influence in this world. And I can promise you that if you keep rapid firing your Bible bullets without thinking, your mission will fail. People will stop listening to you, and hint, hint, they already have. So you can keep firing away thinking you are right, but I'm telling you that it is you that will be left behind, not them. I'm here to help those who have been the victims of biblical illiteracy, terrorism, and religious extremism. Bible-believing Christians who behave this way are no different than terrorist extremists. So get that straight before you start peppering the comments. With this in mind, let's talk about the story. How we see the beginning will determine the middle and the end. Let me just give you a couple of examples. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Everyone okay with that? Well, not my atheist friends, but that's fine. I'm mostly addressing those that believe the Bible is the word-for-word historical account of everything. So Genesis 1 says that God created the heavens and the earth. But what else does it say? Now the earth was formless and void, or empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Now, wait a minute. Where did this water come from? How could the Spirit of God hover over waters of a formless earth? Didn't God create everything out of nothing? I'm just reading the Bible word for word, people, and asking a few simple questions. So right there, in the first verse of the Bible, we see that it doesn't explain everything. For those who are more adept at hermeneutics, I absolutely love the Hebrew Scriptures and the Codex of Exegetical Brilliance that is available to us over the centuries up to today, especially with the internet. Anybody can learn anything. But those of you who are on top of all that know what I'm doing here anyways. Wink, wink. When people are thinking about Jesus, when they're thinking about the cross and salvation, we have to skip over these questions and just remember the part that God created everything. Whatever. Let's just get to the juicy garden and snake stuff. Okay, let's do that. Skip down to verses 26 and 27 of Genesis 1. God creates humanity, both male and female, in his own image, after creating the world in 6 days. Now here, humanity is imbued with the special characteristic of being made in the image of God. that's pretty cool, but well, let's not think about it too much. Where's that snake in the apple? Well, hold on, because this is just chapter 1. And chapter 1 ends with, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. All right, on to chapter 2. Okay, chapter 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. God rested on the 7th day from all his work, and he blessed it. What? Wait. What's going on? Chapter 2? This is the account of the heavens and earth when they were created, when the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Okay, so why is the story starting all over again? And why is it different? Have you ever noticed that? We just read the one about the creation of we just read the one about the creation of the heavens and the earth and the humans, and then, but here it is again. It's doing it all over again. For those unfamiliar or who haven't noticed this before, the creation narrative starts all over again for some reason. Now, I won't be getting into what's called the documentary hypothesis, which is used in scholarly circles here, but it basically states that the Torah, or the Hebrew Bible, including Genesis, were not written by a single author, but compiled from various sources over time. These stories were later sewn together by scribes. But my point here is that right from the beginning, you have to deal with these things. It's not so simple. You can't just read the Bible word for word and think that you understand it just by reading it. Now, I can hear some of you saying that, well, you have to pray about it before you read too, or be led by the Holy Spirit. Yes, that's fine with me. I believe that too. But no matter how you approach it, you are either doing interpretation or following an interpretation that has been given to you. So right from the beginning, we can see that our story is much more complicated than what many are telling themselves. And this is important because what we think about the beginning will determine what we think about the end. And most importantly, what we think about right now. We did not even get to the snake and the apple, but let me just say that it wasn't an apple, it just says fruit, and it doesn't say that the snake is the devil. At least right here it doesn't. In the Garden of Eden, as it's known, we don't see an apple, we see fruit. We don't know what kind of fruit it was. And we do see a snake who is not named Satan and who is not named the devil. Now, there are some later scriptures that make references to the serpent as the devil, but if we're reading the Bible word for word, just follow me here, because we do not see anything in the Genesis story about all of humanity inheriting Adam's sin. Just hang with me for a second. What we see is death as the punishment that we inherit. It says nothing about humanity losing being made in the image of God. But remember, we just kind of skipped over that part. But just so you know, the notions of original sin that so many of us think we know isn't mentioned here. Bible-believing Christians can thank St. Augustine, not the Bible, for many of their ideas. Now, Augustine was a 4th century bishop in Roman North Africa. He is the one that laid out many of the ideas about the beginning of the story that finds itself in most Western churches today, both Protestant and Roman Catholic. For my Bible-believing Christian friends, you fall into the Protestant camp just for reference. Now, I started us off by making fun of the notion that every headline is a sign of the end times. We just took a brief look at the beginning of a story. If we can't get the beginning right, or if we at least acknowledge that the beginning that we thought we knew is more complicated than we realized, what does this mean about the end? What does it mean for our here and now? It means everything. So we can either waste more time by shooting Bible verses, or we can take a deep breath and take a break and settle into the fact that all of us are on a journey in understanding. That's the journey I'm on, and I'm trying to share that with you, the things that I've learned along the way. And I have learned that we can't skip over the part where we are created in the image and likeness of God. We can't skip over the fact that we inherited death, not Adam's sin, from the accounts recorded in Genesis. It makes a big difference on how we see ourselves and our relationship with God. It makes a big difference on how we understand the rest of the Bible, including the Gospels of Christ and what it means to be saved. And it makes a big difference in our understanding about where things are going, how the story ends, and most importantly, it makes a big difference on how we decide to live. What kind of spirituality do we embrace? Christians are very good at telling everyone what to do according to their little story. But what we have been saying here is that this little story is not the big story. Our vision has expanded as we've come to realize that there has got to be more. Archbishop Veron Ashe tried to share this with his audiences over and over, but he knew that most were not getting it. It frustrated him. It broke his heart. And yet he kept preaching it. Carefully, of course, because he too was aware of those machine guns. It always amazes me how many people leave comments of praise and how Bishop Ashe's preaching changed my life. They're all throughout his YouTube videos. You'll see comments like this. Yet, how many people would still be saying this if they truly heard what he was saying? My thought is that many people were reacting to his delivery style more than what he was actually saying. And those of you who've been hanging out with me on All Things Reconciled, you know that his sermons stated some of this plainly, while other things we have had to unpack using our knowledge of his Eastern Orthodox background and our experiences learning directly from him. We're happy that many people are finding his videos and benefiting from them, but we also need to keep repeating what he said. There's got to be more. So we are going to keep doing this. We are going to keep looking into his messages and unpacking them for you and with you. There's a lot more coming, and we want you to join this community at the Proximity Portal, no matter where you are in this journey. And that includes liking and subscribing to this video, to the Proximity Portal channel. All of this is going to help, sharing this with others. And of course, we don't reject any financial contributions as well. But let's get back into it. There has got to be more. More to what we thought about church. More to what we have thought about salvation. More about what it means to be created in the image and likeness of God. The purpose of God is not just to get a ticket to heaven and escape this place. It is to become what God intended from the beginning, to be with him, to be so united with God that we reflect the fullness of his glory, to be one with the Father, just as Jesus said, "Let them be one, Father, just as you and I are one." That's a lot more than being a saved sinner. That's a spiritual vocation that starts right now, not some one and done story of belief. And if this is how the story begins, how does it end? Sadly, most Christians miss the most important part, the restoration of all things. It's right there in the Bible. But we want to focus on hell, fire and brimstone, and the destruction of creation. It is so sad. It's so sad. Now, understanding the beginning of things is called in Greek protology. The Greek word protos means first, and logos is like the word. It's a discourse study. It literally means the study of first things. In theology, protology focuses on questions about the origin of the universe, humanity, and even God's plan for creation. And we can see here that our protology has been very limited by the beliefs we have been given. And there's got to be more than this protology. Now, understanding the end of things is called eschatology. And this comes from the Greek words eschatos, meaning last, and logos, meaning, again, discourse or study. So it means the study of last things. Now, in religious context, eschatology focuses on what happens at the end of time. There's got to be more in our eschatology. Our entire story, there has got to be more. Now, for those worried about falling away from the truth by looking at these things, may I just tell you that this is orthodoxy. You got your Bibles from orthodoxy. You got your original sin from someone else and from the Western Church that uses St. Augustine's ideas in isolation from the wide range of fathers and mothers of the Church that carried the wisdom of Christ and the apostolic tradition. Yet this holy tradition has been largely lost in our world. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and join an Orthodox church, but if you do, please tell them who sent you. I have a ministry called Tell Them Who Sent You. All right. But our main focus here is to make you aware that there is more to your story, and we want to help you discover it. Now, if you've made it this far with me today, we are about to really get into what makes the proximity portal tick. You see, it's not just about me. Joining this network are voices from many traditions, many ideas, and all of them are here to have some real talk about our lives and this world that we live in. My program is just the beginning, but we're soon to hear from many others, believers, unbelievers, healers, activists, leaders, workers on the front lines, all of us finding proximity with each other and also for each other. We're moving past the whole us-them attitude, and we're jumping into deep conversation to see what we can learn from each other. All Things Reconciled is a program that dares to believe that this life is more than just a meaningless quest for a pie in the sky when we die. Our existence is an incredible opportunity to experience a reality that is deeply rooted in the reality of the living and mysterious cosmos that goes far beyond our ideas of the things we once call, or we often call, science and religion. Now, by this, I mean that our perceptions are bound to binary dichotomies that we often see as either or. We either see the universe as a place of good and bad, of right and wrong, of us versus them. Now, I mentioned science and religion because we often think of them as polar opposites, but they're really just two sides of the same coin. Now, whenever I say things like this, many people get defensive about their beliefs. Those who believe in literalist biblicism, the idea that the Bible is the word-for-word account of the history of the world, they get upset at me because I'm saying that the Bible can be interpreted in many ways. Many of them see science as a threat to their beliefs. They use words like ungodly, antichrist, or secular as pejoratives, dirty words for those who disagree with them. Now, on the other hand, we have militant atheists, who I prefer to call anti-theists, because I think that there's a difference between not believing in a God and those who seek to stamp out faith and people of faith altogether. And we have seen the genocidal results of materialist atheists over the last century, and it can be argued that their extremism is just as bad as any religious fundamentalism. Despite its claims of progress and enlightenment, scientific materialism has left a trail of devastation in its wake for the past 2 centuries. From the horrors of eugenics and forced sterilizations to the atrocities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the pursuit of scientific knowledge devoid of ethical considerations has led to an unparalleled suffering and destruction. The blind pursuit of technological advancement at any cost has resulted in the dehumanization of millions, as seen in the experimentation on human subjects in the name of progress. Scientific materialism, with its relentless focus on empirical evidence and rationality, has often ignored the moral implications of its discoveries and leaving countless victims in its wake. But while scientific materialism has undeniably contributed to its share of atrocities, it's crucial to also recognize that rigid religious beliefs have also played a significant role in historical atrocities, from the Crusades, the Inquisition, to more recent examples of religiously motivated terrorism. The imposition of dogmatic beliefs has led to untold suffering and loss of life, just as scientific materialism has pursued its agenda, often at the expense of ethical considerations. Religious ideologies, rigid ones, have justified violence and oppression in the name of faith. Now, both extremes, whether driven by scientific or religious zealotry, have resulted in a profound suffering. They serve as stark reminders of the dangers of any unchecked ideological fervor. Any unchecked ideological fervor. And anti-theism, as a militant expression, is also an ideological fundamentalist belief. Biblical literalism and what I like to call scientific chauvinism represent two extremes of ideological fervor that can lead to very detrimental consequences. Biblical literalism, with its insistence on interpreting religious texts as literal truth without room for interpretation, it can foster religious beliefs that justify intolerance, discrimination, and even violence in the name of faith. And we have all seen this. Similarly, scientific chauvinism, characterized by an unwavering faith in the infallibility of scientific knowledge and methodology, which isn't very scientific, this can lead to a dismissal of, as I said, ethical considerations and a blind pursuit of progress at any cost. So both biblical literalism and scientific chauvinism share a common disregard for nuance, complexity, and the ethical implications of their respective ideologies. I'm going to stop right there and just say, I am not trying to say that I am somehow absent of an ideology. Anybody who claims not to be subscribed to ideology are most likely even more in the depths of ideology than anyone else. By promoting absolutist views and rejecting alternative perspectives, they hinder dialogue, they hinder collaboration, and most importantly, they hinder mutual understanding. And this leads to exacerbating societal divisions and conflicts. Hello, I don't see any of that around you. Moreover, both extremes prioritize their ideological agenda over the well-being of individuals and communities. And this leads to a disregard for human rights, dignity, and autonomy. So whether it's the suppression of scientific inquiry in the name of religious orthodoxy, or the exploitation of vulnerable populations in the pursuit of scientific progress, both biblical literalism and scientific chauvinism can result in grave injustices and atrocities. In essence, biblical literalism and scientific chauvinism represent two sides of the same coin, characterized by dogmatism, intolerance, and a reluctance to engage with opposing viewpoints. Recognizing these dangers posed by these extremes, it's essential in fostering a more inclusive, empathetic, and ethically grounded approach to navigating the complexities of human existence and understanding. So these two sides of the same coin, when they behave this way, they pose a serious threat to all of us. And this is why I take the time to point out their commonalities, whether they like it or not, whether the religious people like it, or the scientific, materialist, anti-theist people like it or not. This is why I will continue to say this. Now, that being said, I hold both science and religion in high esteem when it comes to their positive contributions to the world. Nor do I see faith, reason, and ethics as mutually exclusive. When we split everything into two categories, we're not seeing the whole picture. We are participating in division and dualism. Now, this is not to say that we shouldn't use our discernment in our beliefs. We do, and we should make choices that regard what we believe and how we live out our lives. But we need to avoid the temptation to be settled in our opinions and avoid dogmatism. There is ample evidence for anyone who takes just a moment to think about it to see that humanity has failed over and over again when it allows its ideologies to limit its horizons. So as we navigate the complex terrain of belief systems and ideologies, it becomes increasingly evident that our propensity for binary thinking stifles our capacity to grasp the full breadth of human experience and understanding. So by reducing the world to simplistic dichotomies of right and wrong, good and bad, us versus them, we overlook the nuanced interplay of perspectives and possibilities that lie beyond our narrow frameworks. So biblical literalists and militant anti-theists exemplify the polarized ends of this spectrum. Each are staunchly defending their worldview while demonizing the other. Yet, in their fervor to assert their truths, they fail to recognize the common ground they both share. Both camps, whether they realize it or not, are bound by the same inclination towards absolutism and exclusion. The danger is inherent in such entrenched positions. I cannot overstate the danger. When ideologies become entrenched, when beliefs become unquestionable dogma, the path to understanding becomes obstructed, and the potential for dialogue and collaboration diminishes. We witness the devastating consequences of such rigidity throughout history as societies fracture along ideological fault lines, leading to conflict, oppression, and suffering. It's not my intention to denigrate either science or religion. Both have played pivotal roles, as I said earlier, in shaping our understanding of the world and advancing human civilization. Science offers us a methodological approach to uncovering the mysteries of the universe, while religion provides solace, guidance, and moral frameworks for countless individuals. I personally consult both sources to inform my epistemology or my ontology, my how I know and my being in the world. When we compartmentalize these realms of knowledge, when we pit faith against reason, we often overlook the inherent interconnectedness of all things. Faith, reason, and ethics need not exist in opposition. Rather, they can complement and enrich one another, fostering a more holistic understanding of everything, of reality. The call to transcend dualistic thinking is not a call to abandon discernment or critical inquiry. It's a call to embrace complexity, to acknowledge the limitations of our own perspectives, and to engage with humility, open-mindedness. Only by transcending the confines of binary thinking can we hope to forge a path towards reconciliation and understanding. Now, I have to say that because we've been talking a lot on this program about theosis, about our theology of becoming one with the divine. As the ancient church fathers, as St. Athanasius said, God became man so that man could become God. And how many Christians have a problem with that when these are the same people who gave the Christians of today their Bible? But we've been talking a lot about reconciliation and then of all things as well. Part of that reconciliation is not just an abstract theological concept. We live in a complex world. And so in the face of uncertainty and complexity, let's resist the allure of dogmatism, even in theosis and apokatastasis. And let's embrace a spirit of inquiry and of dialogue. For it's in our willingness to engage with diverse perspectives, to challenge our own assumptions, and to seek common ground amidst differences, that we truly honor the richness and diversity of human experience. And if that isn't part of our theology, it's a worthless theology. I really love this quote. In the words of Anais Nin, we don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So let us strive to see the world not as a battleground of conflicting ideologies, even though we know that's what's happening. Let's not see it that way. Let's see it as a weaving of interconnected truths, just waiting to be woven together in harmony. And so, and I'm not necessarily, for those in the more philosophical bent, I'm not necessarily talking about Hegelian dialectics either. Thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. I think it's a very helpful tool. I use it all the time, but I actually prefer, instead of that, we don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Now ask yourself, how do you see things? Are you willing to change how you see? Are you ready to really start thinking about how you see things? Now this will change your life. This will change your sense of reality, your purpose, and your destiny. Now, as we expand our vision of seeing things as we are, then we will also expand how we see everything. This realization can be the very thing that we have been waiting for our entire lives. There has got to be more. There has got to be more. So we do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. And so I want to remind you, if our theology, again, is not just an abstract principle, that sounds good, but if it doesn't have any efficacy for this life that we're living, that we're actually living, then what use is that theology? What use is your Bible alone if all you do is bludgeon people and bloody them with it? What good is your science if you ridicule and demean and dehumanize people? And so this message of all things reconciled is not to try to harmonize evil with good or things like that. It's not to harmonize, violence or to justify anything like that. I'm not talking about completely erasing discernment. I think that's been clear from what I've been sharing with you tonight. All things reconciled simply means that we have this hope. And we don't just have the hope up there or in the afterlife. We do everything we can to graft ourselves into this hope, to attach ourselves to this message of proximity. And that is the essence of this program, All Things Reconciled. And it's also the essence of the proximity portal. And there are going to be views that are different than mine. What I'm really hoping for is that you join this community and let's grow together. Leave your comments and your questions. Join this, because there's not too many places out there, if you haven't noticed, especially on social media, where people are willing to listen to each other and not shoot each other, with their Bible M16s, AR-15s, I guess is, you should tell I don't know that much about weapons, There goes my alpha male status. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys for joining me on All Things Reconciled. And I am truly hoping that tomorrow you go out, if you are in the path of the total solar eclipse, please don't miss the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to celebrate the complexities and wonders of our universe. It's a natural occurring event. Just as the lightning striking the Statue of Liberty photos that we've been seeing online is a natural occurring event. And these are things that, it's actually beautiful. I mean, I'm hoping there was no damage to the Statue of Liberty, but hey, and earthquakes, natural occurring event. However, What might not be a natural occurring event is how humans separate themselves from nature. When humans separate ourselves so much so that we begin to have a detrimental effect on the environment and the delicate ecological systems. But understanding this larger story that I've been talking about will actually bring you more into proximity with an awareness of our connectedness to the earth, our connectedness to each other, our connectedness to the life-giving spring that is this existence that we get to enjoy. There's a lot of suffering in this world because of the separations that humans create. And I, for one, am not interested in participating in any religion. And some will argue that, well, that you identify as an Orthodox Christian, and so therefore you are subscribing to division. I'll have much more to say on all that, but just hear the essence of what I'm saying. I do not want to subscribe to any belief that separates me from you. And unless, your whole sole purpose is to annihilate me. And, to a lot of people, I think it's completely understandable that they have feelings like that towards those who represent, authority and leadership in religion. I totally get that. I have been part of lots of spiritually abusive things in my life. And so you're not going to get any criticism from me if that's you. But you are welcome here in this space, and you're welcome to ask any question that you want to ask, for sure. I am all about that. And we really want to get this out into the world. As you might know, algorithms are set up for stupidity. Let's just be honest about it. We're in an entertainment consumer culture that doesn't want to think. We have to combat that by those of us who do share intellectual curiosity, faith curiosity, a more reconciliatory view of the world. And we do need to oppose injustice. We do need to oppose wanton violence, dogmatic beliefs that want to annihilate others. So don't get it twisted what I'm trying to say. I am very much for speaking out for the oppressed and the marginalized in wherever that might be. But most importantly, we want to make sure that we're not contributing to that marginalization as well in our fight for justice. There's a lot of that going on right now. I have viewers who come from conservative lines of thinking. I have viewers that come from liberal lines of thinking, progressive lines of thinking. I have viewers like myself who come from more radical lines of thinking and who don't really believe that our system is just, don't believe that our system was ever meant to be just. And some of you might be offended by me just saying that. And all I'm advocating for is that we are allowed to tell the truth. And a lot of those out there right now, and I hate to say it, you know which side they're on, they're arguing that their voices are being suppressed and that, that their objective is not to suppress the voices of others. I'm very suspicious of that latter claim. The first claim, yes, there are people who want to suppress more conservative points of view. While I may personally disagree with a lot of their points of view, I do believe that people have the right to say what they want to say. What people don't have a right to do, though, is inflict harm on others by how they say it. And a lot of this stuff is just reactionary. Okay, but I am not trying to say that I would justify anybody who wants to advocate genocide, who wants to advocate racism, homophobia, down the line. Any sort of separation, my perspective is I'm against separating on that level. So I truly hope that resonates with you, and I truly hope that you will join us, not just on All Things Reconciled, but on the Proximity Portal. And we are going to grow, but we have to bust through the algorithm, and that means I need you to like and subscribe to the content, share the content, and guess what? I want your content. I want you to join with us in the Proximity Portal, and let's have that talk. Let's see what other programs can we offer this community, other perspectives. So with humility, let's take a few breaths together, because that's the one thing we all share. So take a nice deep inhalation in through the nose. exhale through the mouth. Do this 2 more times. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. One more time. In through the nose. Now, if you're from another tradition, I am going to lead from my own, but feel free. This table is open to all. So, Shubho Labbo Labado Vadarucho Kadisho, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Abun de Bushmayo Nitkadeshamach, Ete Maku Taknewit Seviana Kakana de Bushmayo Para, Avlan Lochwan de Sun Kanywan Yoman, Washblokan Kobe Nakana Daknan Shbokal Kayabin. ولتنسونا إلى بطن مبيشة متود لقيمة قوتك وحيلة وتشبك لحلام منا. Creator, we ask you in all humility to help us understand that we see things not as they are, but as we are. Let us push through these boundaries of our binary thinking in whatever form we are all susceptible to in this life. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us to light. And from death, lead us to immortality. Help us to seize the present moment. Help us to create the space that we need to clear our perceptions, to let go of perceptions that are not serving us, and to fill us with the purity and power of that which moves through all things, that which in which we live and we move and we have our very being. Heavenly Comforter and Spirit of Truth, flowing everywhere and filling all things, Treasury of blessings and Giver of life, come and abide in us and cleanse us from every impurity. And in this great goodness, deliver us. Deliver us into the good and the true. Deliver us from what is not good and what is untrue. Fill us with your light. Fill us with your love. And fill us with the passion to keep going on this journey towards reconciliation of all things. Shubho Labo Laboro Barucho Kadisho. Amen.